Hey guys. So I recently uploaded a few videos showcasing Frostblades in scenarios such as like a regular T16 map and Shaper. I got a lot of interest and, well, a decent amount of interest at least, and a lot of people kind of asking a lot of questions and why this, why that. If I don't invest a ton of currency, can I still do well? Which are all super valid questions, and I figured the best way to put it together would be, well, this right here. So I think the best way I'm going to approach this is I will definitely have timestamps for you guys because knowing me, I'll probably trail into a million different things. But that being said, I'm kind of going to approach this in a way where I'm going to show what I have now. I'm going to show exactly how the path of building works out, and this way you can get an idea of the top end, right? Because I know just as well as anyone that not everyone's going to be able to be like, okay, sweet, I got a 6-link chest with, X and X and additional curse and blah blah. And not everyone can put that together, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a firm believer that for a build to be good, it needs to be good at all stages. You've got your initial investment, which is going to be, let's just say, 50 chaos. I mean, currency is really easy to kind of build up in Legion if you do a little bit of looking around. But now, obviously, this isn't going to be a 5 chaos build, throw together, delete shaper kind of situation, but it's one of the builds where if you put a minimal amount of investment, you'll get a lot of bang for your buck. And one of the, I guess, more unique aspects is that you kind of feel each upgrade. There's a lot of builds that I've played and put together myself where, you can invest the first 5 exalts is like a tenfold difference, and then the next 5 exalts, it's like, did I even change anything? So this definitely wasn't one of those builds for me, because I started out with that bare minimum. I had like 50 chaos to put together. I found some crappy foils. I basically used a tabula for a while, and the tomb fists are like 2 chaos, so I didn't. There were no implicit corruptions, nothing like that. I think I used like a regular basalt flask for the physical damage reduction, and I mean just basic bare bones. So yeah, I guess I'll show you guys what I got here. I'll show you where my path of building is lying. I did have someone comment with their path of building and what I would change, so I figured I'd kind of walk you guys through that on like, okay, hey, this is why I went here instead of here. This is the kind of gear I could upgrade, just so you could see kind of an idea. And then at the very end, I'll include, I guess, just a few more demonstrations of, hey, this is how I play. Here's some tricks on what you can do to make it feel better. Without further ado, I figure let's go ahead and jump right in. So the foils, I pretty much picked up after using like a simple 200 DPS foil for ages. I picked up one about, I'd say, 380 PDPS foil with about, I always recommend that the attacks per second, you want about 1.95 and above, but I mean, I think I picked mine up for about like an Exalt at the time. Obviously that all kind of changes. I do want to jump over to like the trade site to kind of show you how to search for these guys, what's good, what's not good, what you can improve off of. But I mean, I just used basic foil, 380 DPS or so. I think the nice breakpoint's about 320. When you start pushing above that, that's when the prices start to skyrocket to that 234 exalt point. The next breakpoint I saw was about 420 PDPS. Around there, that's when you start hitting these jumps. So if you kind of know that and you play around with it a little bit, you can save a ton of currency by basically downgrading, quote unquote, like 5 or 10 PDPS, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not going to be too much. At the end of the day, though, because I want to cover like, okay, this is the top end, this is what I want to shoot for. I did end up going with this foil, which I believe has about 446 PDPS. And then I did want one that had the hybrid physical damage and accuracy. And then the attack speed, I was looking for anything about 1.98 and up. Now I got lucky, found a decent enough one for, that had the 2.03. And then, obviously, just multi-mod it. I did the base physical because I'm not really much for impale on this build. And then, the quality with the crit. We're not Slayer. We don't have the base crit ascendancy where we can just be like, okay, no matter what, we always have 8% base crit, which is always nice, but in this case, you know, want the crit and the quality. Now, a nice little trick, the percent quality that you craft and the base quality of the weapon, which normally just goes up to 20% with no extra, you know, messing around, are kind of, they work as two separate modifiers. So if you find a foil that is, you know, let's just say it has an 18% quality craft, and it's sitting at 38%, which is, you know, the 20% base and the 18% craft, then you can actually take the beast corruption, which if you, I can't remember exactly which beast it is, but it'll corrupt it to 30% quality. These two will stack even if you have the craft on already. It won't take your, you know, 38% weapon and bump it down to 30%. It will boost it up an additional 10. Now, all that being said, if you did do the quality fossil crafting route, and let's say your base is 27%, and then you did the 18% craft, you could beast craft it, which, by the way, does corrupt the weapon, but usually that's not too big of a deal nowadays since, you know, Val Orbs are all over. But it's not going to give you, you know, the base 27 plus 10 plus 18. It's just going to take that base 27 and move it right up to 30%. So you'll get an extra 3% out of it. So that's, you know, one thing to keep in mind. What this does do is it allows you to, you know, when you're looking for weapons, you can go, okay, has this been corrupted yet? No. Well, if it's around the same price in PDPS as the others, then it's possible you could get more potential out of it, more bang for your buck per se. Now, you always want to make sure that your stronger weapon is your main hand. You'll get a lot more out of it in terms of DPS. So, for example, this one's about a 450, whereas my offhand here is sitting at about a 428. Now, obviously, you can see it's got this crappy little accuracy roll on it and all that, and I mean, it's because it does have like a hybrid, you know, physical accuracy roll, but it's like the lowest tier. So, you know, it's still a good weapon, but since the physical damage, you know, and the attacks per second are slightly lower, I get just a little more out by swapping it over. You know, but there's not much more to say on that. For the helmet, I'll be honest, I just used a basic old flat, like just had regular old flat life. Had some resistances on it, and then because of the Legion content, there are so many helms being dropped right now with good life, good resistances, and a nice, you know, percent of physical taken as a element. For those of you who don't know, one of the benefits of that is we basically have a lot of ways to reduce the amount of elemental damage we're taking, especially through, you know, these new passives such as Soul Steel. You know, it'll give you a +1 to your maximum elemental resistances. So if you can take some of that physical damage and convert it to an elemental, you can get some minor reduction that way. So sure, in the long run, it's not going to help out tremendously, but it, you know, it does a small amount while you're still looking to build up your character, and you can usually pick these up for like 5 chaos. I mean, they're really not that big of a deal. When I had some extra currency, I was like, okay, I want to try and craft that nearby enemies has -9% cold resistances through fossil crafting. You can do that with the frigid fossils, I believe. And I just kept spamming frigid and pristine fossils, you know, so I got, I'm going to say quote unquote lucky, and got one that had the, you know, tier 1 hybrid with the tier 1 flat, while also giving me the nearby enemies have, you know, -9% cold resistances and room to craft the +1 to AoE gems. So that was great, but I personally would have liked more resistances out of it, and less life, because at least this way I could have, well, I could have adjusted some of my other gear to tune more. Just an example of that, I had this belt originally. Now I was using this on another build, which is why it was a shaper base, but I could use the rustic sash base, you know, whereas now I really had to tune my resistances a bit more and change the base entirely. Now, of course, these are such minor details. Like, of course, you'd rather have the well-rolled helm, you know, and lose a small amount of increased physical. But, you know, I guess it's, you know, one of those things where it's like, okay, in a perfect world, I would have liked it. But that being said, you know, this is kind of like end game case. Now there are a lot of potential enchants you can go with. When I was playing around with Path of Building, the 12% increased Blood Rage was several exalts, or sorry, the 12% attack speed while you have Blood Rage, which will stack with the already 20% that's given. Was, I mean, just a regular armor base was, I mean, several exalts on its own, and it really wasn't that much of an increase to damage. I think it was like 3%, whereas the 40% increased Frostblade's damage was about 5%. And you know, they're small things, but the Frostblades cost me an exalt. You know, wasn't crazy, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess why not. Now next, again, I just used regular old rings. I mean, they had like a little bit of physical damage, they had, some life, and they filled out the rest of my resistances along with, like one of the 4 chaos minus total mana cost crafts, just to kind of get that down. Because as you can see, we don't have a whole lot of mana here. But eventually, once I started replacing some of my other gear, I was like, okay, let's try and roll it. I did get a little lucky. It took me like 3 tries with the annuls, and I kept pricking it. But once I got the level 12 Assassin's Mark, that's when I crafted on the Flat Fizz, Life, All Res, and the Tier 1 craft, which for the mana cost, which costs an Exalt. Insane price jump from 4 Chaos to an Exalt, but I figured if I was going to use something, I might as well go ahead and throw on the big one, right? Now, there are a lot of options for your crafts. You can do, the life. You don't even have to do the all res. You can do just percent damage. But I'm going to be straight with you guys. I don't think it's worth it. This amulet rolled as it is, or sorry, ring rolled as it is, has 68% total elemental resistances. That's a lot for a ring that's been kind of specialized like this, where if you throw that off, you're pretty much getting, what is it, like 32%? So you almost cut it in half. And for what, 16% damage on a build that already has, through passives and gear, like, 1,000% increased damage, it's just not worth it. I'd rather take the resistances and use that, on my other gear. Now, the Tomb Fist, absolutely recommended. I've seen a lot of people with alternatives, but you can't bypass the Tomb Fist. Yeah, sure, it doesn't have increased attack speed. Yeah, sure, you lose out on another slot for, resistances. Yeah, sure, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what whether it has an implicit, whether it doesn't, whatever the case is, throw the crappiest murderous eye jewel you can in there. I use this absolutely basic jewel for the longest time. It had no damage, no life, no nothing, and then I just threw on another. As you can see, this one still, it's nothing special. The biggest kick here is that you get to intimidate enemies for 4 seconds when you hit. Now, intimidate will say that they take 10% increased attack damage. But this 10% increased attack damage kind of works as a more modifier. So the best way to look at it is, hey man, if I have a crappy murderous eye jewel, it's like having a god tier watcher's eye, because usually a lot of those, will give you like a nice 10% more damage. Now some of them, don't get me wrong, will give you a whole lot more, but for the simplicity of it, it doesn't matter what you got. That intimidate's going to be huge. You have a few good Vow Corruptions out of here. They're about 1 exalt now. I tried to corrupt my own because I think the elemental weakness corruption isn't that hard. If you set up on trade for Tomb Fists and you just have it so they have at least 4 sockets and they're 3 linked, you can usually pick them up for 2 to 4 chaos. Like I'll set mine on to active mode so they just kept popping up, and I just pick them up, chrome them to whatever colors I needed, and then throw a Valor. First time it took me maybe 5. Then the second time it took me maybe 30, because I got one and then I sold it, and then I realized I did want to play the build, and so I had to go through it again. But in that time of trying to corrupt for it, I corrupted a few implicits that had attack speed. which I thought were going to be worthless, but for some reason sold for an exalt or more. So heck, guys, please just val these things. Do not spend the 3 exalts. If for some reason you can't get it, I guarantee at some point you probably hit at least a few of the attack speed rolls. Just go ahead and sell them and take that currency to the bank and just buy one straight out. The level at scale, it goes between 10 and 12, does not matter. Okay, it's gonna make such a small difference. Don't pay 3 exalts. Don't be in a situation where you can pay 3 exalts for the base level 10, or you can pay 5 exalts for level 12. It makes no difference. The life, it's a difference of 2% life. I just look at these uniques as, if it has the elemental weakness implicit, it doesn't matter what the rolls are, it's the exact same thing. It's going to be the difference of like 12 life, which is, except for those few videos you see online, that are like, whoa, dude, look, you live with 2 HP. It's never going to make a difference. Belt, guys, absolutely anything you want. Finding a belt with a decent amount of life, that's a rustic sash base, with 3 res, like tier 1 life and space to craft, either percent damage, LE damage with attacks, is going to cost a buttload. You can save a ton by forgoing that 30% LE damage with attack skills and just finding one that has a 3rd res crafted, and it'll be like 5 chaos easy. This thing does not, you do not need to go all out. So if you're looking at a 200 DPS foil for 10 chaos, and another one for 10 chaos, and then a nice belt for 5, you can see how it really starts to become inexpensive. The Tomb Fist, that's going to be like, heck, you can get that for 2 chaos. I've got like a whole freaking tab. If you guys need a Tomb Fist, just shoot me a PM, because let's see, where do I have all those guys? I swear, right, it's usually right in front of me, and I just completely am missing it. But I had them around here somewhere, just a whole bunch of Tomb Fists that I swear, guys. Okay, yeah, if you guys need a Tomb Fist, like, these are not for chaos. I just have them here because I kept getting spam, so I just upped the price. Just hit me up, man. Any of these, they're all yours. They're worthless, so you can grab those. For boots, okay, you have a lot of options for boots. Okay, I've been playing around with this a lot. Originally, I was using this guy because I had it from like way in the back end. By the way, the price here that I have, it's not accurate. I don't even think I have this listed half the time. Basically, I was like, okay, sweet, I want the move speed. You don't ever walk. I'm usually one of those big guys where I'll use a like a nice Quicksilver flask no matter what I do, but you're not gonna need Quicksilver. You could have no move speed. It's going to be, I don't like having none because then it feels a little awkward while you're looting, but it's so pointless. I still need to just get it over it and just start running some Uber Labs to get an enchant on this, which again, this guy cost me like 10 chaos. It has some decent life, but the res, it's nothing crazy. And if you want to save yourself some more currency, just look for a nice pair of boots that has some decent resistances, some life, and has an open prefix. You can just craft the movement speed on yourself. If you do not have the ability to do like the tier 3 crafts, because I know, doing the unveiling recipes is a pain, please, like, seriously, just hit me up. I'll do the crafts. I mean, half the time I just do them for free, like, I don't, in terms of, like, you don't even have to give me the currency for the craft. I'll just do it, because, I mean, it's annoying trying to get that stuff unlocked, and, like, even the Cannot Be Chilled, I was doing, unveiling day in and day out, and a guild member hit me up, and they didn't have the tier 3, and I'm like, oh, yeah, of course I do. No, didn't even have it. So I went through and, like, which, as a side note, if you guys don't have these kinds of crafts and you're really trying to target them, just look what they are. So for example, you need a prefix craft for this, right? So just pull up pathofexile.com/trade, put in boots, for kind of narrowing where you're looking for, and then if you just type in veil, you'll see of the veil and veiled. Prefixes are veiled, suffixes are of the veil. So you can actually narrow down and find items that are going to target exactly what crafts you want. So that'll be a lot cheaper. But the reason why I specifically here have the cannot be chilled over the onslaught is the onslaught really doesn't make too much of a difference. We have so much attack speed and just everything that you're not going to get too much out of just even 20% more. As I said, even the 12% from the Blood Rage craft was like 3%, right? But um, the cannot be chilled is really nice, really nice. There's a lot of really stupid Legion mobs out there. I mean, there's some breach content, and the biggest thing is you've got Shaper and Uber Elder. So Uber Elder's a big one. Those guys will, like, Elder himself will mess you up. He hits like a beast. So having cannot be chilled allowed me to actually drop my diamond flask with the freeze and chill effect. And replace it with a curse, which has been, it was really nice quality of life for mapping. And I know what you're thinking, well, what if what are you worried about freezes? Well, the Yugal Minor God I always recommend. The 5% reduced cold damage taken, if you've been hit recently, is a huge boost for doing like Uber Elder stuff. Uber Elder's, what is it, the little orbs he shoots out? Or wait, actually, sorry, let me put that back. When you're doing the Uber Elder fight, Shaper shoots out the little orbs. They have cold penetration. So no matter how much cold resistance you have, it'll penetrate some. So this reduced really kind of helps with that. And then I also, the 25% reduced reflect damage taken. This is no joke. If you really try to invest in this build, I didn't notice a whole lot until I started hitting that top end. Your Leap Slam will one-shot you. It's a 73k in town, but once you get going and you got all your charges and all that going up, this thing hits like 300, 500k, and I'll just pop, poof. It was really funny because I noticed I swapped away off this one to try out some others, and I just was like, what the heck is killing me? Until I put 2 and 2 together, like, duh, I haven't converted all of my Leap Slam to cold, which is, it's not really worth investing into. But that definitely helps out a lot. And then for the major guide, I just went with the standard, recovery rate of life. If you stop taking damage over time recently, that was nice because you attack so fast, you'll stack Corrupting Blood on you. I mean, you'll max out the stacks in like half a second. So having that extra regen is really nice. On top of that, the reduced shock effect is fantastic. There's a lot of Legion content and like the little dudes during the Uber Elder fight who just stack shock, and I noticed my survivability skyrocket. And then the 25% chaos resistance is fantastic, just because of those poison clouds. I hate them so much. They tank your damage, man. They just doesn't matter what you got, you just 100-0. There are some other options, like for mapping. If you're struggling against Legion, please go with Lunaris. That extra fizz reduction, the avoid projectiles chance, the dodge, and heck, even the chain with your golem, that is huge. I would definitely recommend investing into that if you feel that you're running into some issues with that, because there are some of those bow guys that off-screen hard. So going back into it, I mean, like I said, the boots, you can really run with almost anything you want. Oh, and I forgot to add in you can kind of reduce that chill chance as well through the Taste of Hate. So I felt like I didn't really need that anti-freeze flask, but yeah, the boots, go with whatever you want. Now for rings, again, I was just using some crappy, flat fizz. They got some life, maybe they have attack speed. Maybe I was able to craft the minus max mana cost, because I didn't have it on my chest. But after I got this guy, I started trying to get all my resistances figured out, and then I, threw on a Mark of the Elder. Now, I just bought the cheapest one I could. A lot of them are price fixed, so do be careful. But I just bought the cheapest one I could, threw in a few Divines, got really lucky with the 10% max life, and then the high, fizz damage if my other ring is a Shaper item. And I was like, okay, cool. So, that was pretty sweet, and it's a nice damage boost. I will say, getting the Assassin's Mark and then the Mark of the Elder combo, that was like one of those big jumps. Now, it comes down to the amulet here. Okay, I will be 100% straight. I was using, where I got it somewhere. I was just using this guy for 99% of my playtime with this build. Worked absolutely great, never had any issues, just, mediocre, well, I say mediocre, but just a regular old tier 2 fizz roll with, I mean, the crit multi so low that it's really insignificant. I could remove that and not see much. And the life roll wasn't even anything special, and I had no problems. And then I was just chaos spamming some of these, Shaper amulets and popped into that, and I was like, oh crap. So even that, if I took that off and swapped on the other, I think in Path of Building it comes out to like 10% difference in DPS. So sure, that's awesome, that's great. I mean, that's as much as my Watcher's Eye gave me, but all in all, I really didn't feel it. Didn't feel it change too much at all. And we have so much elemental penetration through other means that this didn't feel like anything. If anything, it was kind of a hassle because I lost a bunch of attributes and I was like trying to manage that around. And so I don't know. This thing, it's been so much trouble even just trying to find a way to use it that I just don't even want to use it. I'm even just thinking about trying to find another way to swap to just, like a nice physical, crit amulet. But in the meantime, it's theirs. But again, I guess I'm really trying to stress that a lot of this stuff is so unnecessary. So unnecessary. I was deleting Shaper and Uber Elder well before I even had a fraction of this gear. Now, the next big investment was my chest. Now, you want the minus total mana cost. This allows you to get away with running precision as well and not worrying about your mana too much. And then the other big guy is you really want that base crit. We do not get the base crit Hatred Watcher's Eye. It's like 4 or 5 exalts, and it gives you less damage than the penetration version, which you can see I've got, where I got them right down here. This is going to be more damage than the base crit, and that's honestly even without this guy. The only real huge benefit to having the base crit on here is you really have an easier time keeping up those blitz stacks. I think right now, even with full blitz stacks, I have about 90% chance to crit, assuming I have my diamond flask up and power charges from the assassin's mark and blah blah blah. But it's really not, crazy necessary. The big thing was that obviously once I got the assassin's mark, I needed the additional curse. So I basically just did some farming for a few days, and then did the I think I had to hit up a guild member for the craft and stuff like that. I mean, sure, it was nice, but the thing is I think I was talking to some of my guild members. I was like, basically before I just swapped over to the additional curse, Assassin's Mark, Elder Ring situation, I was like, okay, I was clearing mobs in tier 16s like they were white mobs anyways. Now they just feel like white mobs still, and the bosses, nothing was, that's the thing, when you get to a certain point that okay, the damage is crazy, it's crazy. If it takes me half a second to kill him without all this stuff, or to get through his phase, well, if it takes me 1 second now, it doesn't really make a difference because you're still waiting for the phasing, you're still waiting for all the extra, so don't be discouraged, oh gosh, I need all this crazy stuff. It's fun, sure, don't get me wrong, it's always cool to see something just blow up, but it was blowing up well before this. Flask is, basic Wise Oak, the Taste of Hate, and the Lion's Roar. The Lion's Roar is probably one of the bigger guys in here in terms of Path of Building Warrior DPS situation, but the knockback is kind of it's a take it or leave it kind of situation. I'm trying to think, what was the other alternative? You could use an Xeris Flask. I mean, any of these, replace it with the regular Xeris Promise Flask. They're cheap as all hell. It gives you leech for your mana, it gives you everything you could need. So there's all kinds of ways to go about this if you don't have currency. Because heck, I didn't. I just used a crappy Xeris Promise for well, honestly, for like just days, because I was like, oh man, I don't want to invest all that much, but the build was just feeling so good, even with a little investment. That's pretty much everything that's has to go with the inventory. Like, hey man, there's all the gear, cool. Some of the changes I made recently is I threw on a tempered flesh. Tempered flesh is huge, 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 huge. If you can throw it on here, I think it's like 75% crit multi. Huge boost. Definitely recommend it. They're like 20, 30 chaos. If you can grab it, oh, okay, so you can see here 65% crit multi, but if you can grab it, please, just swing it. It's a real nice, like later on in the game, once you have all your crit worked out, you'll see a nice boost. Other than that, I just upgraded to this guy. For a while I was using some really crappy, like just some attack speed, some life, and I think I had some res. But I just picked up this because I needed some intelligence. I was running with like a point in proficiency and a point in hard knocks because my stats were all messed up because of that. But I mean, even with this, it wasn't over my old jewel. Even with just the resistances on it, I think I got like 3% more damage. Woo! So like that's the thing. You don't even notice the upgrades when it comes to stuff like this. Like you hit a certain point where you can pay an exalt for a jewel, but your old jewel that you paid 5 chaos for, like, did it really make a difference? The real difference here for me was just the intelligence, honestly. I could have just freaking threw on a regular old blue jewel with intelligence and been happy. And, so all this min-maxing stuff is really just for the, hey, I've been playing this game for a long time. I like the build. I need, let's just throw currency at something, Other than that, you're gonna get, the thing is, this is like 1/5 the damage of this, like 1 chaos jewel. The 15% cold penetration that you get is massive. Okay, that's as much as this, or wait, crap, sorry, I moved it around the Watcher's Eye, These things are amazing. They're going to give you more damage than pretty much any jewel you're going to throw on, and you get 2 of them. So that's kind of one of the things where I'm saying, like, you scale so well off all these really basic concepts. And like you don't even need a 6 link, right? So melee physical damage doesn't even affect your clear speed whatsoever. It just affects that initial hit that you do, which I wish Frostblades at least did the animations you could see, but it just does the initial hit. It doesn't affect the projectiles that spread out. So yeah, it'll affect your single target, and you'll get some better single target, but if you just get some elemental penetration, through these 2/1 chaos jewels, then it's gonna be, if not more than just that simple 6 link. Another thing is if you're feeling like you're not super tanky, which my life is a little low right now because I've been playing with my passive tree and my points, I've spec'd out of a lot of life just to kind of try and mess around with some things. You can just throw Fortify in there. So one of the cool things about the new Fortify is it's 26% more melee damage. Oh crap, I think it's 33% at level 20. I forgot I flipped it for the quality just so it lasted a little longer. But the melee physical damage, or wait, I think they changed what it was. Maybe it's the increased attack damage now with the quality, but yeah, that's off topic. Melee physical damage is 49%, and at level 20 this is 33%. You're losing out on about 16% more melee physical damage, which is like, yeah, sure, wow, that sounds like a lot, but it's not just 19% more damage. That's not really how the more damage will work when you have like all these other more damage modifiers. So it's really insignificant for the convenience factor of always having Fortify. Even during those tough fights, you're like, okay, I can't leap slam onto them or whatever the case may be. So now you have this free, slot on your leap slam, because you want the blood magic and the faster attacks, but so what do you fill it in with? Endurance charge on melee stun. Oh geez, all day every day. Now you have endurance charge generation. That's going to be, I think, like 12% extra physical damage reduction. It'll give you some alt res. It's just all around going to be heck, it's going to be nice. A real nice buff. Let's see, endurance charge, yeah. So you'll see the extra physical damage reduction, 4% per, and then the additional elemental resistances, which is, usually you want to be capped anyways, but that physical damage reduction, again, is huge. So There are always changes you can make to make it a little more tanky, but that's definitely the first one I'd recommend. Other than that, I mean, the gems are super simple. It's Frost Blades, Hypothermia, Multi-Strike, Elemental Damage with Attacks, Ancestral Call, and Melee Physical. You're going to want to swap out Ruthless for Ancestral Call for any kind of big bosses. Early on, it'll kind of make a big difference. You'll feel the change. If you feel like your single target's lacking, dude, just freaking forget about Ancestral Call. Just throw on Ruthless, dude. Multi-Strike chains so well. Don't even worry about it. If you don't want to take that 16% less damage and you just want the deeps, you want everything to feel good, you want to feel good with low-end gear, just throw on Ruthless. You'll barely even notice the difference. So, yeah, I mean, that's really the best route to go. Other than that, the only other thing I really wanted to touch on to try and not make this, absolutely super long, is just some of the path of building stuff. So if we pop on over to the path of building, you'll see if you hit up to level 98, which of course I know, you're not always going to hit level 98, blah, 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 it's a huge investment. I never hit 98, but if you did, you would end up going up this route to disemboweling. I would try and tweak my passive tree a bit, so maybe I could get rid of these guys here, which I just wanted that 100% accuracy. But I get rid of these guys and, actually go up the proper side of the tree instead of here. But you'll see if you actually loop through here, if you remove all these nodes, it's 14%. 14%. I go from 11.4 million. Again, this is with the buffed out mapping DPS, quote unquote, down to 9.7 just by losing these. So they're so nice. I really want to work a way to get up there, but I'm just not too sure how yet or what I want to give up. It's realistically going to be stuff over here. You can also do, the Heart Seeker if you want. That's another nice option. Other than that, I mean, the tree is pretty self-explanatory. Everything you route to kind of has its own purpose. It's more effective, by the way, to spend 4 points going to these than it is to spend like 4 points here. Or 4 points here, which you don't need to do. Which, thank you, someone pointed that out in the comments. I had like an extra 2 points sitting here that I could have invested somewhere else, so that was a nice change. I mean, that's really it. It all stands pretty, I guess, standard. I mean, obviously you're going to want to go for Soul Steel. You want to get your crit. This was like heck yeah, okay, I want to have the Watcher's Eye and the Tempered Flesh. I mean, Winter Spirit's really important. I did have someone ask me, like, hey, what's the leveling process? Do I head up here first or over here? I recommend that no matter what you decide to do, because it's all up to comfort. Like for me, I like to shoot over to Art of the Gladiator for that extra like 2% move speed, and stuff like that. But you can always level in whatever way makes you happy. Just don't invest into crit early. It's just going to be a waste. Invest into the more like flat damage increases. But other than that, work your way over to Winter Spirit. Just for the cold conversion, that's going to be really nice to have that full 100% cold conversion on your Frost Blades. Well, alright, all that's worked out. On the last thing I wanted to touch was actually getting into the guy who sent me his path of building. So Warnick commented on one of the showcases I uploaded and was like, hey, what do I do? This is my build, and which, by the way, he invested a lot of gear into it as well. I could see, he was doing an awesome job. It looks like he's really been, trying to push it as well. But with all that being said, I adjusted it and I sent him an update and all that. But I figured it'd be kind of helpful just to show, like, I guess on screen here, like, hey, this is my thought process. This is what I do. This is how I adjust things. So first things first, he wanted me to look at his gear and his passive tree, but I want to touch up on his passive tree first. Now, I am, just for the sake of comparison, as you can see, he's got, a lot of people, they'll freak out about the, the configuration, and reasonably so. Sometimes people go way overboard. I'm a firm believer that if you do not have a way to basically induce the configuration, it should not be enabled. Like for example, Onslaught here, sure you can, but you're only going to get that with mapping, so I'll just go ahead and turn it off. You know, it's not that big of a deal. You can have it on or off. That's not a huge no-no. It's not like you have, you know, adrenaline, even though you have no way to, you know, pop it. That's like a holy crap. Yeah, don't have that on there. Don't, you know, obviously I try not to cheat by just throwing the no on here as well. You know, you always want to have it up to Shaper and Guardian, even if it's for regular mapping. But other than that, let's see, I wanted to go over to his skills, go to his Frostblades, and include Ruthless. So, Ancestral Call, just using Ruthless, you can see there's a big difference between, okay, this is my Ancestral Call DPS, this is my Ruthless DPS. Ancestral Call makes a huge difference, so if you're struggling, just use Ruthless. Ancestral Call is like that nice quality of life. So if we go over here, his items are absolutely fantastic as well. There's a lot of things. There are some things that I do recommend changing, which I'll kind of talk about that in a sec as well. Like what did I do? What did I want to change? But going over to his tree, first things first, you can see we're missing out on the Constitution. That's 431 life, guys. All right, those 4 points is 431 life. All right, don't skimp on this node. It's huge. Okay, so let's see. First things first is by the way, we're going to go on the assumption that we do not have to worry about his resistances or his like stats. If I do that, I'll be here all day trying to fiddle around with things. But I say we can drop 1 point here. We can drop the 1 point here. All right. Now, actually, I think it'd be good to reference. Right now, he's sitting at about 4.6k life. So if we drop these 2 points and then we just scoot them on over to thick skin, that's 4.7k right there. All right, so a simple change netted us a nice extra 100 HP. But okay, let's take a look what else we got. Well, here's where I, you know, kind of put my money where my mouth is. So we have 4,705 life right now. So we just take those 4 points, remove them, and then we throw over the Constitution. I was not technically wrong. That is 1 more life. All right. Now, the best way to put it is that is 1 more life with just 2 points into life and 2 points into strength. These guys are huge hitters. Just go on over there. So next, we kind of start getting into a nice territory of minor changes. Let's see. If I were to adjust this and I wanted to increase his life and damage, the next thing I would kind of do is I'd probably spec out of the crit chance here. He's got 96% chance to hit, which is pretty solid, you know, but probably not something I'd kind of shoot for myself. I really like to go for that 100%. It's really, really nice. But if we're, you know, not super big on that right now, we can always take 3 points here and then the 1 point here. We'll reduce our little life a little bit temporarily, but we'll head on over to this jewel socket. Now, I remember this happened last time. I'm going to go ahead and change this over now to the Watcher's Eye, because I don't know what happened with that, but in this case is where I would throw in the tempered flesh. Here it is. Just going to add that to the build, throw it into this socket, and you'll see just by throwing it into this socket, that's 14% more DPS, or average damage. That's as much, if not, as the Watcher's Eye. So you'll see actually more, okay? Holy crap, it's like 5% more than just removing this Watcher's Eye. So huge, huge boost. So you can already see where the DPS number, you know, as inflated as it is due to, you know, all the extra configs, is already skyrocketing. And we've netted life. So I've made some small changes here. We've skyrocketed our DPS and boosted our life already. Now, if we start leveling up, because I think hitting level 90 is reasonable enough. So now we have 4 more points to play with. Well, okay, what do we do? Well, in my opinion, I think a really nice route to go about this is we take 3 points into Acuity, right? So you can already see that's going to be 11% DPS. So that, boom, that was a huge, massive hit. We got that 100% crit chance. Well, now we have 1 more spare point. Well, right here is where it kind of gets a little interesting. So this is not super efficient. You want to go around this way, and that's going to require 1 extra point. So let's go ahead and do that. Look at that. That was 400k and change off that 1 point. So here we are. We're sitting at about that 4.8k life. Now, here's where we start touching into that extra stuff. Okay, so why is this life so low? You know, like, now mine was low because I was, again, you can see right here, I'm all about pushing my DPS because I'm really confident in my mechanics. I've been playing for a long time, you know, like, you know, there are some leagues where I'll have that free time and, you know, I'll be pushing Uber or Zeri on like day 1, day 2. And I'll be running in there with, you know, like 2.9k HP and stuff like that. And that's just because I've been doing it for a long time. Like, since they released the content, I'm familiar with the mechanics, I'm familiar with everything. But not everyone has that luxury, so please, if you find that, like, hey man, I'd really like an example for life, I can absolutely upload a new path of building that has, like, hey man, screw all that really extra damage that you don't need all that much. Let's just tank up on that life, because I could push it to 6.5k without much effort, and you'll probably lose about 30% of your DPS, but I mean, heck man, that extra 1.5k HP is going to be real nice, you know. So, alright, so we kind of got our, you know, level 90 tree going down, but where are we skimping on that life? Okay, well, we've got 2 fight for survival jewels, so we can't get much out of those. Here's a perfect example. Alright, that crit multi, like, this whole jewel is 3% damage, okay? This is about as much as that 12% Blood Rage Helm enchant I was crapping on earlier. We do not need 3% more damage, alright? Let's get rid of this. So we're gonna go and we're gonna actually, heck, let's do this another way. Let's just go ahead and throw up Firefox and load in a path of building. Let's get a nice little accurate setup here. So let's look for jewels. Actually, well, just go ahead and search for it here. Now we're gonna do increased maximum life because we want that. That's mandatory. Now we're going to add another stat group because we want to have at least one of these. So the best way to do it is just go through and type attack speed. Now I'm just going to copy and paste this because I'm going to do it a few times. But we either attack speed while dual wielding, or attack speed with one-handed weapons, or attack speed with swords. Don't just use one. Just use this count feature. This says, hey, if one of these are there, then it's good. Just show it to me. Because if you use one, you're really going to narrow down your options. So something you may pay like, you know, 50, 80 chaos for, heck, even an exalt, you know, for let's just say swords, because swords are meta, you know, you could have gotten with one-handed melee weapons for 5 chaos, you know, so don't gimp yourself like that, you know. So we have that, cool. We got the attack speed, because attack speed's always nice. It's going to be one of your bigger, you know, bigger DPS factors. But I mean, that's really it. Usually I just start there and I go, okay, well, what kind of options are there? Well, holy crap, man. We've got all kinds of, you know, it's 1 ALK, 1 C. You know, if I scroll through here, I'll even find some that really aren't that bad. Look, right here's a fantastic example. So low life, you know, it's just chuck a divine on there. Global accuracy rating. If you're not up to that accuracy cap right there, 12%, it's going to be a nice little buff. You know, heck, if that pushes you from 99 to 100%, that's actually a massive DPS boost in of itself, and the way it's calculated. But okay, you know, let's say we don't want the accuracy, don't really care about that. Let's see what kind of. Here's another example. So for 1 chaos, you can pick up a jewel like this. So let's just go ahead and copy the item, and we'll head on over back to path building. Let's see, go ahead and get that up here. All right. So, and then what we do is create custom, copy and paste it, and then add it to the build. So now we take this and we take the Kraken Blood, and we can see if you scroll down to the Hypnotic Prism, you lose 0.4% average damage. Alright? You gain 0.6% DPS. You net 114 life. Alright, this was a 1 chaos jewel change. It boosted us 114 life. There's all kinds of stuff like this. You know, you gotta really, this is where you kind of get those things like, okay, how did Mathel get, you know, all that life on his build, or how did, you know, how this dude get all that life, you know, etc. You know, is it, you know, from his, you know, really high, you know, rolled helm that has like a bunch of HP or stuff like that? Well, maybe, yeah, don't get me wrong. But it's also from these small little changes like that, you know, and they're relatively inexpensive. Um, you know, that's kind of one of the big things where, you know, I was introducing my younger brother to the game, and you know, he get really discouraged because you see all these kind of build guys or these dudes with like this crazy gear that was super expensive, you know, and I kind of had to, you know, I kind of had to show him like, hey man, like trying to find items is a skill in of itself, you know, same way as putting together builds is a skill, or you know, learning how to, you know, dodge mechanics, you know, is a skill. Learning how to actually use the trade system is a skill. You know, these guys who, you know, are able to put together, you know, seamlessly like amazing videos, or you know, like in terms of showcases for a build, and their gear looks mediocre, you know, and then you try and put it together and it feels totally crappy. You know, it usually is just that difference of, well, okay, did you really know how to look? Did you really know what to put in to really push out those things like that? You know? So we got all that together, so okay, great. Now the other changes are like this right here. His searching eye jewel. You could, honestly, he's got the flat life. It's actually, he's got a searching eye jewel. Okay, this is bad. This is really bad. Um, really bad. I just noticed this now. Uh, okay, in his configs, I think this was probably like a basic, like a misunderstanding on his part. I don't think it was malicious or anything. I'm not saying it's bad as in like, oh my gosh, how could you do this? I just mean like, oh, bad mistake. He does not have Intimidate up. So let's go ahead and take a look at the DPS here. 7.3k, 6.6k. Right, that's about, you know, half a mil worth on Intimidate. We don't have Intimidate. Okay. This is a searching eye. We have Maim. Maim does nothing for us, guys, okay? If we go ahead and throw on Maim right here, okay, well, technically the Maim gem, alright, on, you know, an actual link is going to be different because Maim on a, you know, the skill gem itself has more fizz damage, but a maimed enemy only takes, oh, okay, here, let me not be an idiot about this. Let me just go to the configs. Okay, is the enemy maimed? So let's look at the DPS. 6.6 mil. It's not changing. Maim only slows. Alright, it's a 30% slow. Don't, yeah, so that's why this is really bad. You don't want that. Okay. So let's go ahead and throw on a Murderous Jewel, which is weird because, oh, he must have imported my build previously and then made some changes. Okay, so let's just go ahead and throw on mine. Okay, cool. Now we get our configs. Okay, now the DPS is up. Okay, cool. Awesome. So now you have the 7.4. So small things like that, definitely recommend keeping an eye out for. They make a huge difference. His belt is absolutely fine, no issues here. His ring, he's got the assassin's mark, he's got the life, he's got everything he needs. Now this is another example where there's no res on here. If you're able to get it other places, awesome. You know, no shame there. But I probably, if I'm going to multi-mod something, I'd rather get the resistances. One, it's got better resale value if you're gonna reroll, and two, yeah, you can never go wrong with the resistances unless, I mean, you're really flying over the cap. Which, by the way, I know this says he's overcapped on a lot, but you know, there's like the Wise Oak and Taste of Hate active as well, so it's not as you know, accurate. Now, I do remember the amulet I was looking at. Again, ignoring the idea that he needs attributes for something, this is a awesome amulet. You know, it's got the crit multi, the melee damage is nice for the single target, and the extra range is always nice and convenient because you get a little bit extra AoE in terms of like when you hit a mob, which is cool because it means you can hit like Shaper or Uber Elder from a safer distance. I mean, it's a minor one, but it's enough, you know. But if it were me, I would probably invest into something with flat physical because that's going to do a lot more for you with the crit trance and crit multi, and then just higher life. I wouldn't care what any other stats were. I would lose the melee damage, I would lose the melee weapon range, I would lose the cold damage. just for the extra life, crit chance, and crit multi. Now, obviously, that's going to cost quite a bit because the crit chance and crit multi on here are pretty high. But you start to lose a lot of value for your crit multi on the amulet when you throw in something like Tempered Flesh, you know. So you can get away with it some more. His boots, nothing wrong with there. I always recommend, if you have boots without the enchant, just run Uberlap a few times, get an enchant. It can make it, you know, a nice difference. Am I missing something? That's right. Oh man, okay, so this one's on me. Uh, he had the Abyssal socket for the Stygian Vise belt and not for his gloves. Um, that's a whoops. But I will say I'm a little um, I'm not a huge fan of the gloves route like these. They're good gloves, but the only thing that's useful here is some life and some resistances. You have 16% attack speed, but like I said, we have so much attack speed. It really doesn't make a huge difference. And some nice, you know, the spike gloves are great. But dude, I would just take these. I would sell them in a heartbeat and just throw on a basic pair of gloves like here. Let me just show you truly. Am I gonna blank on that Tomb Fist? Okay, so let's just take a nice pair of Tomb Fists here. Okay, this doesn't exist anymore. Oh, I can't remember how to get rid of that. I thought you used to be able to go through and like change the like what version it was. But I'm just gonna go ahead and edit out this attack speed in the meantime, just to kind of make it more similar. So let's go ahead and take the gloves. Obviously, we're going to see some life adjustment here, but this is the kind of case where I would throw in another Abyssal Jewel, just to kind of show, you know, well, actually right here, except I try to get one with more life, like more along those lines, but this is where you can start using the Intimidate. Let's see. So you can see, right? So the average damage, it's showing like a huge change, right? So, okay, well, why would I use a Tomb Fist with Intimidate when I can just use this? The damage is obviously so much more. Yes and no. Like I said, attack speed's huge. Like, absolutely freaking huge. And Path of Building really has a tough time really showcasing exactly how much of a difference it does. The reason we're getting this huge scaling is because of Ruthless, right? So because there's so much more attack speed on these, or on the gloves, it's really starting to proc in like the efficiency of Ruthless and, you know, all that. Well, it's one of those cases where I'm really going to encourage you to kind of take my word at it. Having the Tomb Fist is better. Having the ability to throw in a decent Murderous Jewel so you can actually have Intimidate is fundamentally better. Please, just take my word on it. If for some reason you feel really strongly and differently on that, throw me in a comment. I would love to review whatever you guys have to say on it. I'm always trying to learn more as well. Other than that, you know, nothing wrong with the, you know, body armor. Helmet's fine too. Foils are fantastic, but long story short, this guy had about, what was it, 3.4 or 5 million to start out or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's just starting out. We made a few simple changes. Boosted the life by, you know, a minor amount here. That's mostly because I started playing with gear again. When I did it for him on his other link, I actually edited the amulet and the other stuff as well to show, and it was about a 500 life gain. He was sitting about that 5k, but substantially more damage, substantially. You know, and I always think it's easy to hit about 92 or so, and I say easy, but not a crazy investment. Let's see. You can always, this is when you can start throwing in some extra points here and actually start, you know, here, and etc. And that's when you see the life really start stacking. But yeah, other than that, guys, I mean that's really about it. This video's insanely long. Mostly because I want to try and get as much out as I could. I'm one of those guys where I'd rather you have all the info you can. But other than that, I'm gonna shut off the mic. I'm gonna do, I guess, maybe just a quick Guardian run just to kind of showcase again. But just so you have it instead of having to like pull up another video. Uh, but if you guys have any other comments, questions, anything like that, please feel free to hit me up. Uh, I guess I can't really show it there, but oh no, can't show it there either, right? Okay, so character's name's Krova. Just hit me up anytime. Feel free to shoot me a PM. I'd be happy to help out, answer any questions. If you need crafts, if you need, heck, dude, freaking, how do I tie my shoes? I'd be always happy to help. Other than that, I'm really in this just to try to help out people. I remember what it was like to, be a new player or, make that jump from like that average player to, like above average. There's like this huge gap, and I remember how hard it is and how tough it is to find some people to kind of take the time to, answer questions and do yada yada. So I do stream. I am starting again, but uh, I only mention that because if you want to pop in, see stuff in action, or ask questions, you want build advice, you want, hey man, I know you're playing Frostblades, but I'm playing Divine Ire, what should I do? It makes my day just be able to kind of get back to the community as much as possible. I don't do any of this stuff for any other reason whatsoever. If I can help one person with my rambling here today, it's all worth it. So, yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and, enjoy the rest.
that stretches the sanity of the mind.